Revealed, the incredible reason our cards failed at lunch. An amazing transformation awaits. The diner buzzed with laughter and the intoxicating scent of pancakes and bacon. Sarah watched as families settled into their booths, sharing stories over steaming cups of coffee. She clutched her kids' hands, their tiny fingers warm against her palm. In this tight-knit suburb, Rosie's diner was more than just a restaurant. It was a monthly ritual that bound neighbors together like a warm embrace. Though her bank account was tighter than her jeans, Sarah longed to create more joyful moments for her two young kids, Chris and Lucy. She imagined the smiles on their faces as they enjoyed an afternoon filled with laughter. The diner was supposed to be the highlight of their month, but as Sarah glanced at her bank account, her hopes deflated. Just enough for lunch, but what about groceries? Maybe next week. She took a deep breath, shaking off the nagging worries. We deserve this, she whispered to herself, before leading her children to their favorite booth. But then came the moment that would unravel it all. A swipe of the card and a devastating decline. Sarah felt the heat rise in her cheeks as her children's bright eyes turned to her, their innocent joy shattered in an instant. The jovial atmosphere morphed into a suffocating fog. Sarah's heart raced, she could hear the forks clink to a deadened silence. As her spirit crumbled, Rosie and Tom, the beloved owners of the diner, stepped forward, their kindness a stark contrast to the embarrassment wrapping around her like a heavy chain. Not a problem, dear. This one's on us, Rosie smiled, her warm eyes shining with understanding, but just as relief washed over Sarah, a harsh voice cut through the sweetness of the moment. Maybe if she worked harder, she wouldn't be here begging for charity. The patron's disdain hung ominously in the air. The shame swelled in Sarah's chest. There was no hiding the weight of poverty or the conflict that her situation had exposed. Who was she, really? A mother struggling just to make ends meet, battling against an unforgiving world. Days turned to weeks as that moment replayed in her mind. Sarah hesitated to return to the diner, the shadow of judgment feeling insurmountable. The community meeting that followed felt like her only option. It was scary, raw, and deeply vulnerable, nudged along by Tom and Rosie's gentle encouragement. Standing in front of her neighbors, Sarah shared her truth. Unraveling her struggles, she could feel the collective heartbeat of the room, empathy knitting itself into the air. As she recounted the loneliness, the sleepless nights, and the flickering hope, tears welled in many eyes. It was a moment of undeniable connection, igniting conversations about support and solidarity. But just when hope hung in the balance, someone shyly asked, "What will it cost us to embrace this truth?" The murmurs rippled through the crowd, uncertainty clouding the warmth draping them moments before. Sarah felt a weight lifting and simultaneously pressing down. The potential for change sat before them, pulsing with urgency. Would they leap into the unknown together, or retreat back to complacency? Before we continue, I need to let you know about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, hit that bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can drop a like, it really helps me with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, let me know in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the tension lingered, Sarah's heart raced. Hope sparked within her, but it was overshadowed by doubt. Would they finally confront the biases that suffocated so many, or would they turn away? The air felt electric, waiting for someone to step into the light and grasp a shared purpose. The murmurs in the room grew softer as Sarah searched for the courage to speak again. Each face in the crowd seemed to hold a story, a struggle, and she could feel their connections weaving around her like a blanket, warm, but heavy. This was her moment, but also a delicate balance. Maybe it doesn't cost us anything to embrace it, Sarah said, her voice steadying, breaking the stillness. Maybe it's just about being human and showing up for each other. As her eyes scanned the crowd, she noticed familiar faces that mirrored her own pain and uncertainty. The single mother who worked 2 jobs, the retired couple who watched every penny, and even the high school student with a part-time gig just to help his parents. They were all wrestling with their own burdens. Perhaps her honesty would create space for others to share theirs. A murmur of agreement fluttered through the room. The woman next to Sarah, an elderly neighbor named Mrs. Jenkins, nodded with tears glistening in her eyes. "I've felt that way too, Sarah. We all do sometimes, fearing we're alone in this struggle," she said slowly, her voice shaking with emotion. A younger man stood next, his shoulders slumped as if the weight of unexpressed feelings had finally caught up to him. "I never thought about it this way. I've always just kept my head down, but we're all part of this community. We can help each other." The nods in the crowd grew stronger, a wave of realization washing over them. With each brave admission, they dismantled the invisible walls that had kept them apart. Sarah felt her heart swell with hope, seeing their vulnerability morph into a collective resolve. As the meeting shifted towards solutions, a community pantry, monthly workshops to support those in need, and a better understanding of each other's stories, the air filled with a new energy. It was exhilarating, a chorus of voices rising together, yet, just as excitement soared, Sarah felt a tightening in her stomach. But what happens next? She thought, the fear creeping back in. What if we can't sustain this hope? The worry flickered across her features. Tom, who had been watching her closely, stepped forward. "It starts small, but it's the consistency that counts," he reassured, his brow furrowed with sincerity. "Each visit to the diner, every shared meal, every act of kindness, it builds a foundation." Sarah felt a surge of determination. Yes, the fear would always be there, along with the doubts, but the ties they were starting to forge felt stronger than those shadows. As she left the meeting, the sun setting behind her, casting long shadows on the pavement, Sarah understood they had a decision to make. They could continue this journey together, refusing to shrink away from the discomfort. Or they could choose silence again, allowing the harsh judgments to reinforce their isolation. The weight of the next steps rested heavily on her shoulders, but for the first time in a long while, she felt a flicker of excitement clash with fear. Brave new conversations were waiting to unfold, but could she trust her neighbors to walk alongside her when the actual challenges arose? With the taste of hope still lingering, she started to wonder, what if their newfound connection could shine brighter than their struggles? The possibilities felt endless and terrifying at the same time. As the evening stars began to twinkle, Sarah knew one thing for sure: tomorrow would be a new day, and they'd meet it together. Would the community embrace this second chance, or retreat into their comfort once more? Only time would tell. The next morning arrived with a crispness in the air that felt like a promise. Sarah stepped out onto her porch, the uneven wood creaking under her feet. She took a deep breath, the scent of dew-soaked grass mingling with her lingering hope. Today was not just another day, it was the start of something she couldn't fully grasp yet, but could feel in her bones. As she walked through the neighborhood, her mind buzzed with thoughts of the meeting. The energy from the night before still crackled around her. She spotted Mrs. Jenkins, the elderly neighbor from the meeting, watering her flowers. "Good morning, Sarah," she called out, a wide smile breaking on her weathered face. "Morning, Mrs. Jenkins," Sarah replied, her heart warming. It felt good to know people were willing to connect. At the corner of Main Street, she bumped into Tom again. He gave her a nod, and for a moment, they shared an unspoken understanding. "Are you ready for today's lunch?" he asked lightly. "Ready as I'll ever be," she replied, an anxious laugh escaping her lips. The community pantry proposal was due, and they were meeting over lunch to finalize plans. They arrived at the diner where they planned to hold their lunch meeting, its familiar smell of frying bacon and coffee wafting through the door. A small table had been set near the window, where a few community members were already seated. The warmth inside contrasted sharply with the chilly air outside. As everyone gathered, Sarah noticed the tension in some faces. Excitement mixed with fear. She could see it reflected in their body language, the way they fidgeted with their silverware or avoided direct eye contact. But there were smiles too, and a sense of possibility hung in the air like a balloon waiting to be released. The conversation began to flow tentatively. Sarah opened up about her thoughts on the pantry, and soon others followed suit, sharing their own ideas and fears. By the time lunch was served, laughter began to break through. The old walls that divided them were slowly crumbling, then an unexpected moment turned everything on its head. Just as they were discussing logistics, a teenage girl burst through the door, breathless and wide-eyed. "I heard you guys talking about the community pantry," she panted. "I want to help." As the chatter hushed, Sarah felt her heart skip. This wasn't just a random compliment, it was a spark. The girl's enthusiasm filled the room, changing the trajectory of the meeting. My dad lost his job last month, and it's been tough. I've got friends who want to volunteer too. The group erupted with renewed energy, brainstorming ways to involve the younger generation. Sarah could hardly believe how fast they flipped the narrative. They weren't just a group with challenges, they were building something vibrant, together, but amidst the growing excitement, a shadow crept back into Sarah's mind. Was this new wave of enthusiasm only temporary? Would they sustain this momentum beyond this meeting? As lunch came to a close, Sarah took a moment to speak. This is a beautiful start, but we must ask ourselves how we'll keep this going. Together. It can't just be today. Her voice trailed off, but the room buzzed with possibilities. Tom's eyes lit up. We'll set up a plan. Monthly volunteer days, a sign-up sheet, and maybe even a community event. The ideas flowed faster than she could keep up. Just when it felt like hope might slip away, something deeper pulsed within her: trust in her community. As they wrapped up, Sarah felt a fresh resolve. But uncertainty still lingered in her heart. Could they truly keep the flame alive? Just outside the diner, the girl turned back and said, "Together, we can do anything." With those words echoing in her mind, Sarah realized today was just the beginning. The question loomed: what happens when dreams ignite reality, and challenges threaten to extinguish that spark? The next few days unfolded with a fervor that invigorated the town. Sarah felt the change in the air as she walked through the neighborhood, her heart buoyed by the lingering excitement from their lunch meeting. Flyers hung on lampposts, and conversations buzzed in coffee shops about the community pantry. She couldn't believe how quickly they had mobilized. But with the burgeoning hope came an undercurrent of pressure. Every time her phone chimed with a notification, her pulse quickened. They had set up a group chat for planning, and the messages poured in. Ideas splattered across the screen, some practical, some whimsical. It was all too exhilarating, but she couldn't shake the worry that accompanied it. What if we fail? She murmured to herself one evening, staring at the screen. It gleamed back at her, filled with enthusiasm, yet a creeping doubt slid through her mind. Would the town really rally around this? Determined not to let fear sabotage the momentum, she decided to meet Tom the next day, hoping a conversation could help ease her anxiety. As she walked to the local park, the sun brightened the day, but doubts crept like shadows beside her. "Hey, you," Tom greeted her as she approached the bench. "You look deep in thought." "Just trying to process everything," she admitted, sliding onto the bench beside him. "It's all happening so fast. I mean, what if we can't keep it going?" Tom considered her words. "I get it. But remember, we're not doing this alone. Look at everyone else in the chat. They're as invested as we are. This is bigger than just us." His confidence ignited something within her. "I know." And the girl, Mia, she was incredible. The way she just jumped in to help. "I didn't even think to ask for younger volunteers. They have energy and ideas we haven't even thought of." Tom nodded. "Exactly. It's like a wave, Sarah. We can ride it if we trust we're all on the same board." As they spoke, Sarah felt the warmth of camaraderie filling the space. But just as quickly, the clouds of doubt loomed again. But what happens when we hit a roadblock? What if we can't get enough donations? Or what if something goes wrong? Tom smiled gently. "We adapt. Community is about coming together to tackle challenges. If it's a struggle, we'll face it together." His words were a balm, but a shadow of worry still lingered in the corner of her mind. Just before they parted ways, she turned to him. "We need a solid plan, Tom. Something concrete so everyone knows what to expect." "Yes. Let us organize a community meeting for next week," he replied excitedly. "We can explain the pantry's purpose, share updates, and set clear roles. Everyone can contribute, so it doesn't fall solely on our shoulders." Nodding, Sarah felt her spirits lift. Ideas started swirling as she imagined how the meeting could unfold. They exchanged more thoughts and made decisions on timing and outreach until the sun slipped beneath the horizon, painting the sky in hues of orange and violet. "Do you think people will really show up?" she asked as they stood to leave. "If they're as passionate as they've been in our chats, they'll be there," Tom reassured her, "and don't forget, the more transparent we are, the more invested they'll feel." As they parted, Sarah's excitement blossomed, but another twist was coming. Late that evening, as she finalized the details for the meeting, her phone buzzed again. It was an alert for new messages in the group chat. With a sense of apprehension, she opened it, and there it was, an unexpected twist, a message that could change everything. "Guys, I just heard that the local church wants to back the Pantry. We might get a large donation." Sarah's heart raced. Could this be the turning point? With this new prospect hanging heavy in the air, Sarah felt a familiar mix of hope and anxiety. It was becoming clear that the journey would be anything but smooth. What challenges lay ahead? And would the church's support truly rally the community in ways they hadn't dreamed? The sun peeked through Sarah's window the next morning, casting beams of light that danced across her bedspread. She sprang up, heart racing, thoughts swirling around the message from the group chat. The church's potential support felt monumental, yet her comfort wavered as she realized it could bring expectations along with it. Breakfast, she barely tasted her coffee. Her mind was racing ahead, calculating the best way to seize the moment. Could they really harness the support of the church? What if they didn't? With her phone always within reach, she couldn't help but glance at it, half hoping for another update. She decided to call Tom, her excitement bubbling just beneath the surface. "Hey. Did you see the message from last night? The church. This could be huge. Right?" Tom's voice on the other end crackled with energy. "We need to reach out to them today. Let us find out what kind of support they're offering, monetary, logistical, or maybe volunteers." "Absolutely," she replied, her stomach fluttering with a mix of hope and dread. But what if they have conditions? What if it complicates things? Then we navigate those complications, together. Sarah felt a little more grounded. They agreed to meet an hour later to brainstorm a plan before contacting the church. Something about having him alongside her provided a sense of reassurance. Walking to the cafe, she watched neighbors trudge down the sidewalk, their faces weary yet familiar. The town felt alive, bursting with the hope of change, and yet Sarah couldn't shake that gnawing feeling. What if their hopes crumbled? At the cafe, Tom was already seated, a notebook spread before him, ready to jot down ideas. "Let us brainstorm. We can focus on how to present ourselves to the church, emphasize community engagement and shared values." They launched into the discussion. Tom sketched out key points while Sarah crafted the narrative they wanted to present. Each idea invigorated her. They spoke about how the pantry would serve families and create a safety net for those in need. This was it. The chance to pull the community together. Their momentum built, filtering out doubts. Yet, as they finished up, Sarah hesitated. What if we walk in there and they don't see our vision? What if they're skeptical? Then we show them who we are, Tom replied, fierce determination in his voice. We're more than an idea, we're a community that's ready to act. With that, they set up a time to meet with the church. Hours before, Sarah crafted a flurry of messaging for the other volunteers, sharing all the developments and inviting everyone to join. She felt a spark of inspiration coursing through her. The day of the meeting arrived, nerves riding high. As they entered the church, she was struck by the warmth of the wood beams overhead, the sunlight filtering through stained glass. It should have felt comforting, but the weight of expectation pressed down on her. What if they grill us? Or even worse, what if they laugh us out of here? She whispered to Tom. They won tea. Just stick to the plan, remember why we're doing this, he encouraged her with a squeeze of her shoulder. As they walked into the meeting room, it felt like the air changed. Members of the church were already seated, curious eyes trained on them. The silence felt deafening. Sarah's heart raced and she could feel her palms sweating. Hello everyone, thank you for having us, Tom began. But just as Sarah prepared to join, a voice interrupted from the back of the room. What exactly do you plan to do with the donations? Sarah's heart sank. The first question, so direct, spiraled her thoughts back to her fears. She opened her mouth to answer when suddenly, a familiar figure emerged from the crowd. Mia, the very girl who had been so eager to help. Sarah couldn't help but feel a swell of pride mixed with hope. We plan to create a community resource that not only distributes food but also fosters connections and support. But more importantly, we want everyone to feel included. Around the room, a shift began to happen. It was subtle, heads nodding, faces softening. Would their passion be enough to turn the tide? Just as momentum seemed to build, a member stood up, his expression stern. And what if this doesn't work? What then? Sarah's heart raced again. Would they back out now? Would their dream dissolve before it even took flight? As she searched the faces around her for an answer, Mia stepped forward, her voice unwavering. Then it's up to us to figure it out together. Sarah could feel the air crackle with possibility. Could this young girl galvanize the room? Would their dream take flight, or would doubt drag them down at the very start? Everyone was watching, and decisions were hanging in the air like a fragile thread. The moment of truth was here, and it was about to get tense. The tension in the room felt palpable, like the seconds before a storm. Sarah's mind raced as she sensed the weight of Mia's words hanging over them. Could they really turn this around? Tom's eyes locked onto hers, a silent promise of support bolstering her courage. She took a breath, rallying her thoughts. We believe this pantry is more than just a stopgap. It's a lifeline. A place where people can come together and share their stories, their struggles. Murmurs rippled through the audience. Sarah could sense the skepticism beginning to wane, replaced by curiosity. Think about it, she continued, her voice growing steadier. In every corner of our community, there are people who feel isolated or lost. This isn't just about food, it's about building connections among neighbors. We can create a support system that extends beyond the pantry's walls. A hand shot up from the back. Are you suggesting that this will solve the bigger issues? Poverty, joblessness? No, Sarah replied, shaking her head gently. We don't have all the answers. But we can start a conversation. We can provide a safe space where people can express their needs and frustrations. We believe that from those discussions, real change can emerge. The stern-faced man shifted uncomfortably in his seat. A flicker of uncertainty crossed his features, and a hint of softness appeared in his gaze. Every journey begins with a single step, right? Mia chimed in, emboldened by Sarah's passion. We may stumble, but if we're in this together, we can lift each other up as we learn and grow. And that's the beauty of community. We're not meant to do this alone. A wave of agreement swept through the room as nods turned into spirited discussions. Sarah noticed the expressions shifting, faces that had been tight with doubt now softened with hope. From the corner, a woman with kind eyes leaned forward. What about funding? Are you prepared for that side of it? Tom jumped in, a note of careful optimism in his tone. We're already preparing grant applications and seeking donations. Also, with the church's support, we can leverage their network to reach more people who want to contribute. I like the sound of that, another member of the congregation shouted out. Real solutions come from our own efforts. The room began to buzz with excitement. Ideas flowed freely, each suggestion an affirmation of their collective goal. They discussed workshops, outreach programs, and inviting local farmers to contribute fresh produce, but just as things seemed to get back on track, Sarah felt the knot in her stomach tighten again. What if all this enthusiasm faltered as quickly as it had built? What if real life interfered, financial constraints, lack of volunteers, or plain old apathy? In that swirling uncertainty, she glanced back at Mia, whose expression remained steadfast. This young girl, through sheer determination, was igniting the spark they needed. All right, we can't just promise a pantry, Sarah said, her heart pounding but her resolve firm. We need to commit to making it a hub of healing. Somewhere where the entire community can come to rely on each other, to support each other. A ripple of applause erupted, the sound unexpected but undeniably uplifting. For a moment, Sarah felt a glimmer of hope flicker into existence, dancing on the edges of what seemed possible. But just as they were catching their breath, the stern member stood again, his eyes piercing. "You're hopeful, and I respect that. But hope won't keep the lights on. The community needs real leaders who can rally support when times get tough." Sarah swallowed hard. She had stepped into this meeting ready to inspire, but could she handle all this responsibility? Her heart raced as she faced him. That's why we're here. To be those leaders. To show that we are capable and committed. But we need you all. We can't do this in isolation. We need your wisdom, your opinions, and your stories. The room had fallen silent again, the weight of her plea hanging heavily. Everyone seemed to grapple with their part in this unfolding chapter, curiosity mixed with revelation. Just then, a soft voice broke through the stillness. "What's our next step?" Sarah smiled, filled with the weight of possibility. "We take a vote. Who wants to move forward with this vision and bring the pantry to life?" But when she looked around the room, what if some still hesitated? What if the dream unraveled before they could spin the first thread? The answer lay in their hands. Would they be ready to commit? Their futures hung in the balance, and the next moments could change everything. As the question floated in the air, the silence felt heavy, like a thick blanket that weighed on everyone's hearts. Sarah scanned the room again, searching for a glimmer of resolve. Faces flickered with uncertainty, whispers barely audible. "Wouldn't it be easier to walk away?" Tom nudged her arm, his reassuring smile a reminder that she wasn't alone. "You've already sparked something," he whispered, nudging her to regain focus. "I believe in this," she addressed the crowd, her voice steady. "I believe in us." A hand rose slowly, trembling slightly. Sarah recognized it. It was the woman with kind eyes. "I'm willing to help," she said, her voice gaining strength. "But I need to know this isn't a dream. What happens when the hype dies down?" "Then we meet again," Sarah replied quickly, heart racing. "We discuss what's working and what isn't. We adapt. This pantry isn't just about a place. It's about a commitment. A promise to each other." The woman nodded, and soon another hand shot up from the back, this time belonging to a younger man, someone who always blended into the background. "I've seen too many good intentions fall apart. We need accountability. How will we ensure this continues?" "Great question," Sarah said, feeling each word become part of the fabric of their proposal. "We can form a committee. Every month, we'll meet to evaluate our progress and prove to ourselves that this isn't just a flash in the pan." Murmurs of agreement rippled through the crowd. Sarah felt warmth spread through her chest. This was a catalyst for change unfolding right before her eyes. Another voice chimed in. "What about outreach? How do we let people know we're here?" It was a young woman, her hair in a messy bun, who had been quiet until now. "We can leverage social media," Tom said with enthusiasm. "We can create a Facebook page to promote events, share stories, and keep everyone engaged. This is all about building momentum." "Yes," Mia exclaimed, her eyes shining bright with excitement. "And what if we had a launch party? We could invite the whole town. Music, food, stories, a celebration. Count me in for the decorations," a voice declared. Laughter broke out, and it was contagious. Smiles spread, and the energy in the room shifted. But then, a thought nagged at Sarah. Would this initial excitement translate into lasting change? What if as weeks turned into months, they lost steam? It was a risk she hadn't fully confronted before, and one that sent a shiver through her. As she prepared to speak again, the stern man stood, his expression softened but wary. "Even with all this enthusiasm, people can become disillusioned. We need to be grounded in reality. Dreams won't fill the pantry on their own." "I hear you," Sarah said, her brain racing to formulate a response. "But reality is shaped by our actions. The community we build here can provide support during those hard times. If we're willing to fight for it, and we can transform our fears into a foundation. The man's gaze held hers, and she could see it the tiniest flicker of possibility. Are we ready for a vote? Sarah asked, her heart thrumming loud in her ears. Hands shot up. First, one, then two, then the entire room erupted, arms raised high in support. Cheers broke the tension, each voice representing a commitment to the future. All right, everyone. She called over the sound of excitement. Let us draw up an action plan. We'll put everyone's ideas in play, and there will be a result. We're all guarding this hope together. As they began brainstorming, laughter and conversations weaving together, Sarah felt a strange warmth envelop her. Hope. Real, tangible hope, but in the back of her mind lingered the question: what challenges awaited them beyond this moment? Were they truly equipped to face them when they arrived? With plans forming and spirits lifted, Sarah understood one thing for sure: the journey ahead wouldn't be easy. A sense of thrill and anxiety intertwined within her. Could they sustain this energy? The answer was unknown, but she was ready to find out. Perhaps it was time to confront the reality of their commitment, to step into the unknown. And she could feel it, the winds of change swirling, vibrant and fierce. But was her community ready for what lay ahead? What sacrifice would be needed, and who would falter under the weight? The path forked, and Sarah had to ask herself, were they ready to confront the true depth of this transformation? As the night wore on, the energy in the room shifted. Excitement still danced in the air, but mixed with a tinge of nervousness. Sarah looked around at familiar faces, now painted with anticipation. They had made an agreement, a pact to transform their community, yet the reality of what lay ahead felt daunting. The clock ticked loudly on the wall, marking each passing second. A sense of urgency propelled their conversations. It was a whirlwind of excitement and brainstorming. Tom clapped his hands, calling for attention. All right, everyone. Let us focus. We need actionable steps to move forward. Sarah felt her heart race as she gathered her thoughts. Right. We've got our core ideas: outreach, accountability, and the launch party. Let's break these down. Who wants to lead on each part? Hands rose again, and she felt a swell of gratitude. People were stepping up, their enthusiasm infectious. Mia hopped up, her messy bun bobbing as she spoke. I can take the decorations and organizing the launch party. I've got some ideas I want to run with. Awesome. Sarah beamed. The thought of a community celebration filled her with warmth. It was a step towards cementing their intentions. Another voice piped up, a calm presence amidst the whirlwind. I can handle social media, said Mark, the quiet young man from earlier. I'm usually behind the scenes, but this matters. I'll create content and coordinate messaging to make sure everyone is aware. Perfect. Tom and I can work on the committee structure, Sarah added quickly, heartened that each person found a role. It's essential that we're transparent with our goals. They broke off into smaller groups, the energy palpable. Laughter woven into their shared concerns made the atmosphere feel electric. Every moment felt alive with possibility. But deeper in Sarah's gut simmered an unease. What if all this enthusiasm fizzled out? What if, when the novelty wore off, the support did too? Doubt crept in like a shadow, but Sarah pushed it aside. No more thinking small, they were stepping into something bigger than themselves. As she conversed with her group, she noticed the stern man watching intently. His expression had shifted from skepticism to curiosity, and that made her feel a flicker of hope. During a pause, he approached her, lowering his voice. I appreciate your passion, Sarah. Yet, I want to ask. He hesitated, struggling with words. What happens when resources don't meet demands? How do we show people we're here for the long haul? That's an important point, Sarah replied, her fingers tapping her chin as she considered. It comes back to communication. As long as we're open about our progress and setbacks, we're more likely to build trust. We can create a newsletter or a community meeting, maybe even share success stories to keep momentum flowing. He nodded slowly, and Sarah could see him processing. She turned to the group, feeling emboldened. This isn't just about the pantry. This is about creating connections between us and our neighbors. The conversations we have now are the foundation of this community. A soft murmur of agreement filled the room before turning into a chorus of voices buzzing with ideas. Yet the question lingered, was it truly enough? Was change only a plan on paper, or could it manifest in the very hearts of their community? Just then, someone burst through the door, a breathless figure, eyes wide with urgency. You won't believe what just happened. It was Jennifer, their town's local reporter, clutching a notepad. What is going on? Sarah asked, anxiety swirling in her stomach. I just got off the phone with some local businesses. They want to sponsor our launch party. And it might just be bigger than we imagined. Sarah's heart skipped a beat. A surge of adrenaline rushed through her. This wasn't just a hope anymore, it was a possibility breaking through, but in the midst of this burgeoning excitement, her mind raced. Would it all come together? Would they be able to handle the pressure of expectations? Sarah looked at her friends, wondering if this miracle was enough to sustain their dreams or if they were reaching for something just beyond their grasp. What awaited them after this unexpected twist? Would they truly be ready to face the reality of what it meant to be supported? The room was alive with gasps and whispers as Jennifer's words hung in the air. Excited chatter erupted, faces brightening with the promise of the unexpected opportunity. Sarah felt the weight of possibilities pressing against her chest. This moment could be the spark they needed, a chance to propel their vision beyond mere talk into tangible action. So, what's the plan? Mia chimed, her eyes wide with enthusiasm. If local businesses want to jump in, we need to harness that energy. Jennifer nodded, furiously scribbling notes. They're interested in providing everything from food to decorations. But they also want to be part of the planning. They think this will get people involved. We can build excitement around it. Watching their enthusiasm unfold, Sarah couldn't help but wonder if the wave of eagerness was too early, too naive. They were stepping onto a path where expectations might weigh heavily. Okay, great, but we need to make sure our vision stays intact. We can't just cater to what others want. This is about our community, and not just the businesses, she said, her voice steady, though her heart raced. Tom exchanged a glance with Sarah that spoke volumes. We can create a committee that includes these businesses but keeps the community at the forefront. Let us set boundaries, so we don't lose our original intent, he suggested. The idea gained traction very quickly. They formed a new group within moments, pulling in a mix of community members and business representatives. Sarah took a deep breath, buoyed by the sense of momentum, yet aware of the complications a larger group could bring. The stakes felt higher now. As the night wore on, excitement merged with an undertow of exhaustion. Ideas spun around, and soon they began to take a loose structure. Mark proposed building a social media presence to highlight everything they were doing, capturing the energy and involving even more people outside their initial circle. What if we shared every step? He asked, leaning forward, voice eager. Hit up some local influencers. They can help spread the word. Sarah nodded, his enthusiasm contagious. It felt refreshing to think of their project not just as a pantry but as a movement, a heartbeat of change. But in the midst of all this energy, a flicker of doubt returned, heavy and laced with apprehension. What if the businesses wanted too much influence? What if their interests overshadowed the community's needs? Even as fresh energy poured into the room, Sarah felt a knot tightening in her stomach. To shake off the nerves, Sarah turned to Jennifer, who was busy drafting a press release. How do you see your role here, Jennifer? You'll be the voice for the media. You can help position our story the right way, she encouraged, wanting to rally any potential hesitation. Jennifer looked up, her expression earnest. I want to portray this as a community-driven initiative. But I'll need to be transparent if things start to feel off the rails. I'll report that too. This is the real deal. With that, a collective nod of understanding passed through the room. They were all in this together, and a shared commitment began to form. Although it wouldn't all be easy, they pledged to stand together against challenges. As the hour grew late, laughter began to echo through the space again, but underneath it all was a sense of reality settling in. Nervousness mingled with excitement, each emotion feeding into the other as they prepared for what was coming. Sarah turned once more to the stern man who'd begun to seem more of a friend than a stranger. "Do you feel it? The shift in our dynamic? Maybe we can actually do this." He smiled, a hint of genuine warmth breaking down his earlier reservations. "You're doing something important here, Sarah. Believe in it not just in hope, but in action." But just as the meeting began to wind down, the electricity in the air transformed into an uneasy silence. A rough-looking man, someone no one recognized, stumbled through the door. "I heard you were starting a pantry. Are you crazy?" His voice boomed, meeting them with a challenge that hung heavy in the room like a storm cloud, casting shadows over their optimism. Sarah's heart sank as eyes turned to her, wondering how she would respond. What did he mean by crazy? Would the community turn against them? Would this naysayer derail their efforts before they could even begin? Could this be the first test of their resolve? The atmosphere changed in an instant. The laughter and chatter fell silent, replaced by an uneasy tension. Eyes darted between the newcomer and Sarah, who stood at the center of it all, heart hammering in her chest. The harshness of his words, like a knife cutting through their optimism, seemed almost surreal. "Crazy?" Sarah echoed, her voice steady, though uncertainty laced her insides. "We want to create something good for this community, a place for support and connection." "Is that wrong?" The man crossed his arms, a skeptical look plastered on his face. "You think just throwing a pantry up is gonna solve anything? This place needs more than just groceries. People need jobs, not charity." His words were like ice water. Sarah's stomach twisted. The reality he pointed out loomed large, reminding her of the deeper issues they faced. Would their pantry become just another momentary fix, a bandage on a wound that needed deeper healing? Across the room, murmurings began anew. Some nodded in agreement with the man, while others leaned in closer, intrigued by the confrontation. Sarah felt the weight of their eyes piercing but expectant. Was this the moment everything fell apart, or could it pivot to something transformative? Channeling her anxiety, she took a small step forward. "You're absolutely right. We can't fix everything, but we have to start somewhere. A pantry isn't just about food, it's about building relationships, sharing resources, and yes, creating opportunities. It might just spark something greater." The stern man watched her closely, eyebrows slightly raised in surprise. Sarah turned to the crowd, an urge pumping through her veins. When people feel supported, they take action. They find jobs, they create businesses, they strengthen our community. That's what we're trying to achieve here. A woman in the back nodded in agreement. "It's true. Look around. We're all here, wanting to connect and contribute." Murmurs of support rippled through the crowd, fueling Sarah's resolve. She gestured to the newcomer. "Look, we acknowledge this isn't the end game, but it's a start. Perhaps you could even help us identify how we can further support the community in real, actionable ways?" His expression wavered, skepticism beginning to soften, curiosity creeping in. After a moment, he stepped closer. "Fine. But don't think it's easy. People will doubt you, and it will get messy." "Messy is part of the process," Tom chimed in, shooting Sarah a supportive smile. "We grow through the chaos, while lifting each other up. Will you join us instead of standing on the sidelines?" The man hesitated, glancing around the room at the faces of hopeful neighbors, then back at Sarah and Tom, who stood with unwavering commitment. "Maybe I will," he finally said, a hint of intrigue in his voice. "Let us see if you can make this work." As the crowd erupted in applause, the tension melted, replaced with a sense of unity. Sarah felt the warmth of hope swell within her, hugging tightly around her heart. That night, they filled the diner with laughter, planning sessions, and brainstorming workshops, confidence blooming as each person embraced their role in this newfound journey. Sarah reveled in the emotional shift. The fear was still there, but it had been transformed into courage and collective action. Days turned into weeks, and the pantry began to take shape. Community members rallied together, assembling shelves, collecting donations, and joyfully sharing their skills. Each act of kindness was like a thread weaving together a vibrant tapestry of support. When the launch day finally arrived, the entire town buzzed with energy. A festive air blanketed Rosie's diner, where families gathered for the launch party. As people mingled, they shared stories, laughter, and camaraderie. Amidst the celebration, Sarah scanned the room, and her heart swelled with pride. Children played, neighbors caught up, and even the once skeptical man joined in the festivities, smiling and engaging with others. When the time came for Sarah to address the crowd, she stood before them, her heart pounding with anticipation. "We did this together," she exclaimed, her voice clear and vibrant. "This pantry represents hope, courage, and the strength of our community coming together. Each of you has played a vital part, and I believe this is just the beginning of an incredible journey." Cheers erupted, and for the first time, Sarah fully embraced the belief that they could adapt, grow, and nurture this dream into reality. Every challenge ahead was an opportunity to build something stronger. As they began to disperse, with smiles and laughter wrapping around them like a warm embrace, Sarah exchanged glances with Tom and Mia. They were no longer just neighbors, they were family, united in purpose. With her heart full, she understood that it wasn't about erasing struggles, it was about facing them together, rising to each occasion, and celebrating every victory, big or small. What came next wasn't scripted or certain, but Sarah felt ready to embrace whatever lay ahead. Together, they would craft their story, and she knew, without a doubt, they would shine brighter as a community than they ever could alone. Remember, this incredible journey depends on you. Subscribe immediately to the channel so you don't miss out on the next exclusive stories. Leave a like now to feed the algorithm and show your support. I need to hear your thoughts. Comment below your reactions and feelings about this ending. And don't wait not even one more second. Share this video with at least 5 friends who need to see this transformation. True fans like you understand the importance of helping our community thrive.